All right, today we're going to go on a bit of a journey, an evolutionary journey, but not of bodies, of our minds. We're going to trace the history of this one single, really powerful question that has completely shaped how we think about, well, ourselves. And it all starts right here. Why do we do the things that we do? I mean, think about it. This question has been echoing around for centuries. From philosophy to science, it's the bedrock of psychology. But it's also a question we all ask ourselves, right? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way? Why did I just do that? So, to tackle that big question, we're not just going to get lost in abstract theories. Nope, we're going to use the lens of modern applied psychology, or MAP. And the goal here isn't just to, stuff our heads with a bunch of concepts. It's about taking these huge ideas and actually applying them to ourselves to get a real, practical understanding of our own lives. Okay, so first up, the quest to understand. Because before we dive into the history of how psychology evolved, we've got to lay our own foundation. It's kind of like prepping the soil before you plant a seed. We need to get our own minds ready to really absorb these big, perspective-shifting ideas. You can think of your mind as having these three kind of modes. First, you've got the emotional mind. That's the part that's reactive, totally subjective, sometimes, let's be honest, a little unreasonable. Then there's the rational mind, all logic, all focus, all intellect. But it can be kind of cold, right? Disconnected from the heart of things. The sweet spot, the goal, is what we call the wise mind. It's that beautiful balance where the two come together. It lets you be reflective and responsive instead of just reactive. And here's a great way to visualize that. It really is all about balance, isn't it? Real self-management, true wisdom, it comes from that integration. It's not about shutting down your emotions to be more rational or letting your emotions run wild. It's about using both of them together to get a clearer picture of yourself and the world around you. But there's a big hurdle to getting to that wise mind. It's called cognitive inflexibility. And we've all done this. It's when you hear a new idea and your brain immediately holds it up against what you already believe. If it doesn't fit, you just toss it out. This is the absolute enemy of growth. I mean, think about it. If you only ever accept what you already know, how are you ever going to learn anything new? All right, so now that our minds are primed, flexible, and ready to go, let's travel back in time. We're going to look at psychology's very first attempt at an answer. Back to the birth of the science, when the biggest question on everyone's mind was a simple one. What? For like thousands of years, thinking about the mind was pretty much a philosopher's game. You had guys like Plato just pondering the soul. But then, in 1879, everything changed. A man named Wilhelm Wundt, the first person to actually call himself a psychologist, sets up the first ever psychology lab. And bam, just like that, the first official school of psychological thought, structuralism, was born. And Wundt's goal was, well, it was huge. He wanted to create a periodic table of consciousness. Seriously. Just like chemists broke down matter into elements, he thought he could break down the mind into its most basic parts, its structures. He believed that if he could just map out all those little building blocks of our experiences, he could explain everything about us. His question was simple and direct. What is the mind made of? But of course, science doesn't stand still, right? It evolves. And pretty soon, a new school of thought bubbled up to challenge all of this. And it did so by asking a totally different and maybe even more powerful question. Why? This was the start of the functionalist revolution. So let's break this down. You had structuralism, which was all about the what. It was trying to make this static blueprint of the mind. Here are the parts, here's how they fit. But then functionalism comes along and says, hold on, that's great, but what does it all do? What's the purpose of consciousness? Why does our mind work this way? How does it actually help us function and survive in the world? It was a massive shift. And this wasn't just some dusty academic squabble, This tension between the what and the why tapped right into one of the biggest debates of all time. Nature versus nurture. Are we just the sum of our fixed built-in parts, our nature? Or are we shaped by how we adapt and function in our world, our nurture? I mean, that's a question we are still wrestling with today. Oh, and the debate got heated. Wundt, the guy who started it all, basically looked at what the functionalists were doing and said, and this is a famous quote, "It is literature. It is beautiful, but not psychology." Ouch. For him, all this talk about purpose and adaptation was just too philosophical, too messy. It wasn't the hard, rigorous science he was trying to build. So who was the main person pushing back? It was a guy named William James, and he was hugely influenced by Charles Darwin's ideas on evolution.
James looked at the mind and said, "You can't pin it down in a lab like a butterfly on a board. It's not a collection of static parts." For him, consciousness was something alive, dynamic, constantly moving, a stream of thought.
And this is how he saw that stream working. Yeah, we have individual thoughts, but they're not just floating around on their own. They flow one into the next. And that's what gives us that feeling of a continuous, unified consciousness. But here's the really cool part. When a new thought enters that stream, it bumps up against the old ones. And that little jolt, that connection, can shift our entire perception. It expands our awareness. It literally allows our understanding to evolve right here in real time.
Okay, so why are we talking about a debate that happened over 100 years ago? What does this have to do with you right now? Well, because this exact journey, from a static view of the mind to an evolutionary one, is a journey that every single one of us can take for ourselves. Here's the big takeaway. We can choose to stop just listing what we think, like a catalog of mental furniture. Instead, we can start asking why we think it. We can shift from that rigid structuralist view of ourselves to a more fluid functionalist one, where we see ourselves as these amazing beings that are constantly adapting, changing, and evolving.
Let me give you a really powerful analogy for this. Just imagine for a second that everything you currently know and believe, your entire perspective on reality, fits inside a box. For you, inside that box, that's the whole world. It feels complete. It's just reality. But then, maybe you learn something new. You stay open and you have this aha moment. And you suddenly realize your box is sitting inside an even bigger box. A whole new level of understanding that you literally couldn't even see before. That is what real growth is. It's the process of discovering over and over again that there is always a bigger box. So let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. Number 1, find your wise mind. Balance that reason and emotion. Number 2, start asking why. Why do I think this? Why does my mind work this way? Don't just get stuck on what. 3, see your own learning as an evolution, not just collecting facts. And finally, number 4, always be looking for that next bigger box. Embrace those new perspectives that can expand your world. You know, this whole story, from Wundt's quiet lab to William James's flowing stream of thought, it's really all about one thing: the incredible, limitless potential of our own awareness. It's about having the humility to recognize the box we're in now and the courage to go looking for the next one. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what's the next box you're ready to see?